Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on the time zone you're following us and watching us. Tonight, this month is Cyberbullying Awareness Month, Bullying Prevention Month, and it's also European Cybersecurity Month. So we're doing a series of Facebook Lives from our page on Facebook, Cyberbullying.pt. Today we're going to have a guest with us that I'll be presenting shortly, and she's going to bring us some advice on parenting strategies against cyberbullying. During this hour-long Facebook Live, our guest, Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov, who I will introduce shortly, the digital parenting coach, will take questions from the audience and will go over several resources and strategies digital parents can deploy to identify, prevent, intervene, and tackle cyberbullying. I'm not alone. I have also with me Sónia Seixas. Sónia is the co-author of a book that the two of us and also Luís Fernandes wrote on cyberbullying, which is a guide for parents and educators, which was published in Portugal in 2006. Sónia was born in Lisbon, Portugal in 1970, has a degree in Social Anthropology from I.S.C.T.E and Educational Psychology from I.S.P.A, has a PhD in Educational Psychology from the University of Coimbra with a thesis on bullying behaviors and health. Teaches in higher education since 1998, mainly teaching courses in the context of development and learning psychology, currently teaching at the Santarém Schools of Higher Education. She's, as I mentioned, the of that book, Cyberbullying, a guide for parents and educators. Welcome, Sónia. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Tito. Hello, everyone. I just want to all a good session.
Oh, it will be for sure. We already have some regulars. António João Silva says good night, boa noite in Portuguese, or as he says, good night in English as well. So feel free to say that you're on that side of the screen and to tell us where you are following us. I'm also going to introduce myself because probably some of you don't know me. I usually go by the name of Tito de Morais, which is my name. I also call myself the Internet Safety Guy. In 2003, I founded and have since been running Portugal's pioneering and widest reach Internet Safety Project, Miúdos Seguros na Net, which stands for Kids Safe on the Net. I'm a member of Portugal's Safer Internet Center Monitoring Council, member of the Board of International Advisors of Cyber Safety India, member of the Advisory Board for EU Kids Online Portugal, represent Miúdos Seguros na Net on the Google's Family Safety Center and on Facebook Safety Center. I also represent Stop Cyberbullying Project in Portugal, and I was an external evaluator of cyber training, taking action against cyberbullying, a project financed by the European Commission that produced Train the Trainer manual on cyberbullying. I'm also a member of the International Bullying Prevention Association and of the Cyber Safety Standards Task Force. So it's more than time to introduce our guest, and she is Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov. And welcome, Elizabeth. Let me just introduce you. Elizabeth is a consultant, author, and founder. She's a mom of two tech-savvy little boys, a lawyer, law professor, and e-safety consultant. She's an independent expert on digital parenting and children and Internet for Council of Europe, a European advisor for e-enfance, It also provides consultancy support to the UK Safer Internet Centre and Internet Matters. Her core work involves researching solutions in the digital age. She's an author and speaker. She also moderates a Facebook community for parents in the digital age, and will be providing you that resource later on. So welcome, Elizabeth. And first of all, thank you for accepting our invitation to be part of this. Sorry, I had you on mute. Now okay. My apologies.
No problem.
There's always something that escapes me. So welcome and thank you for accepting our invitation to be part of this.
Tito. Please, it's just going to be so much fun to be with you and Sonia. I'm ready.
Okay. So we already have half a dozen people with us. Also, Karina Azevedo has joined us. She says boa noite, which means good night in Portuguese. And to kick things off, I would, and António João is also saying boa noite, Sonia. Hi, Elizabeth. And as I was saying, if you on that side of the screen and you want to ask questions, feel free to do so. Elizabeth, I would ask you, I know that you're a lawyer. We've met already a few times. And how come an American lawyer living in Paris becomes interested in things like parenting in the digital age, digital citizenship, and things like that?
An excellent question, because it is a bit crazy. So I was a litigator in California, and then I came to France, and I was general counsel in tech companies. And then a little bit later on, got married, had children, and I just realized that I really loved this sort of intersection between children, technology, and the law. And so I, in 2012, I created my own consulting practice. And at that time, it was called Crossing Guard Consulting, which I know you're probably thinking, what? It makes no sense. But it was the idea of being this sort of person on the digital highway. Actually, at that time, it was more of a highway, helping the children across and guiding them in responsible use. Well, crossing guard doesn't mean anything to you. In England, it is the lollipop lady, and in France, it's I.S.P.A, which is Agent de Voie Publique Service, or something crazy. So it didn't work, and I ended up changing the name to really digital parenting, as I started noticing that whenever I would go to meetings and conferences about internet safety, about not so much digital citizenship, but about internet safety, online safety, children, parents not in the room. They may have been in the room because they were politicians or somebody else speaking, but their interests were not always represented and their voices weren't heard. And so I really tried to focus on this family aspect. And so that's what I do now, just always talking to parents and kind of dragging them with me into the digital age. And that's what we're going to do tonight, talking about some strategies.
Absolutely. And we already have more people on board. Elisa Stern. She's a French living in Portugal, and she'll also be one of our guests later on this week. And she says, hi, Elizabeth, Sonia, and Tito. So hi, welcome, Elisa. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Just an interesting note that we were saying before starting, we all have books on the background, so we're definitely from a different generation, because my kids, they take the tablet to the kitchen when they're going to cook, which was something that was surprising to me. So we are definitely a different generation, and the fact that we are book readers and not so much digital readers, is somewhat can be somewhat challenging. And that's one of the questions that Sonia had regarding the fact that we are digital immigrants and our children are digital natives. Sonia, do you want to ask the question, or I have it here, or do you want me to read it? Yes.
If you can read.
Okay. So this is Sonia's question. The current generation of parents are digital immigrants. As far as digital technologies are concerned, they don't have the knowledge and the skills of their children, those who are truly digital natives. So how can we help parents overcome that digital gap?
Yeah, that is like such a good question, because parents are concerned that they're not tech savvy, that they don't know what to do. And so I do always stress to parents that that you have the education, the experience, the maturity to be able to handle a lot of these online issues. So even, for example, if we're talking about bullying, and if we say cyberbullying and we're talking about through electronic devices or online games or social media, parents may not have to know exactly how it's working to still understand the pain of bullying, if they remember back to their own youth, to understand. So for me, I do think that that parents have what it takes to handle these issues now. But if we were really going to look for more strategies, then we need to get more parental engagement. We need to get parents more involved in understanding the technology. And so I always say to give that challenge to the children. Let them share what they're doing on Minecraft or Fortnite or Roblox or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat. Let them share what they're doing with their parents and show them how these things work. Parents, we're not so bad. We can figure it out. And even though I have tons of books here, Tito, I do have an iPad and I do have my Apple Watch. Okay, so I'm all over.
Okay. So you're not a technophobe?
Not at all. I love technology. Love it.
Of course. We also have Paula Parente with us, and she says, hello, good night, olá, boa noite, Paula. Bem-vinda, é um prazer também tê-la aqui assim conosco. As I was saying, if you have questions for Elizabeth, feel free to leave them in the chat, and I can always bring them into the stream. Now, another question that Sonia had was, given the very nature of the digital information communication technologies, once a cyberbullying action begins, it is very difficult to eliminate it. Once on the internet, always on the internet. Digital content is persistent and its views are exponentially multiplied. It seems to me that preventive strategies are more desirable. What strategies do you identify as being more effective, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I agree with Sonia 100%. Preventative strategies it's the only way to go, because cyberbullying can cause so much harm that, us taking care of it after the fact, it's great. And we really do need to do that. Parents have to understand how to respond to cyberbullying. But my goodness, it would be so much better if it didn't happen in the first place, which is why we need preventative strategies. Some of the things that I think that I've seen as preventative strategies that have been working, especially in a sort of school environment, a school community, is just this kind of whole school community approach, making sure that the parents, the teachers, people are familiar with devices, that they understand how to report an incident, basically that they understand how to support anonymously, because sometimes children do not want to admit to being bullied, or that they've seen bullying, or heaven forbid that they really are the bully. So they need to have sort of a safe space to speak and to talk. And I would also stress, just for some sort of preventative strategy, that people remember that bullying can happen anytime, cyberbullying, 24/7, because we have our devices. And so even though I'm talking about a school approach and a whole school community approach, these things can happen outside of the school. They can happen, over the weekend. They can happen during leisure activities, vacations, etc. So that's why I think that it's really important that everyone is involved, and that we're always thinking as well with digital literacy, and getting people to engage in a lot of critical thinking.
Great. Another, you were mentioning a few on the question, earlier question regarding the digital divide and stuff like that between parents and teachers and children. That we need to be humble and recognize, I believe, that we might not have some technical right now. We have a troll on the Facebook page live, and I'll have to block him, but I'm talking to you at the same time, so I can't do both, but I'll take care of him. The other, those are things that usually happen. The other thing that I was saying, so we have to be humble, and we might not have the technical skills that our children have, but we have a long experience, life experience, that we have our brains that I have developed further than our children. Our frontal lobes are already fully developed. So what we have to do is actually, I think, is work together. And as you were saying, I don't know anything about, for instance, Roblox, but if my child is into it or into Minecraft, I have the obligation as a parent to follow him and to learn with him. And if I sit with him and I see what he uses, I can learn with him and I can be on the same page and we can talk about it. Otherwise, it will become difficult, right?
Exactly. But Tito, you don't have to be a top gamer. You don't have to be an expert in Roblox to show the interest. And also something that was really crucial when you were talking about having a troll is that you said, well, I'm just going to have to block him and I'll take care of that in a second. Lots of parents don't know that they can block. And right. So already things like this, to just pass on to our children about how to block, how to report, how to, turn off a device. So yay, that's exactly my kind of language.
Okay. The other questions that I had were regarding warning signs. The problem with warning signs is I find them very generic. And they tend not to be very specific to cyberbullying. I can, if we look at warning signs, they can be very generic. What do you think are the most reliable warning signs that a child is being cyberbullied, or is cyberbullying another child, or is witnessing cyberbullying?
Yes, 100%. I agree with you. It's difficult to just pinpoint and say one or two things because, as you said, it can be generic. And I also am usually cautious about saying these are the symptoms and these are the signs, the warning signs, because then parents feel that they have a sort of checklist, and that if this is happening or if they see this, then cyberbullying is happening. And sometimes it could be the warning signs. So, for example, something behavioral, the child becoming more withdrawn or becoming aggressive. Sometimes that could be because, I don't know, the family is moving, or there's a divorce in the family. So there are other reasons, but I do think that parents are really in the best situation, the best place to kind of look around and to see what's different, eating habits, depression. Like I said, mostly all of these things are behavioral. Is your child avoiding talking about school? Some of the classics things, are they turning off their devices as you walk into the room? Are they very protective? They don't want you to look at their laptop or their smartphone. There's, like, as we said, there's so many general things, but I also think that this is when we have to use our parent intuition too, and to trust ourselves. And in fact, if I had to say something for all parents that I really stress a lot, is to have confidence in your parenting skills. When something is a little off. You may say, oh, it's puberty, oh, it's the terrible teens, but still you can see that there's something there. So I would tell parents to really be more trusting of themselves, and to get a conversation started with their child when they do see some of these warning signs.
Okay. Another thing that I usually say is, even if the warning signs are not specific, they are warning signs. So we have to, scratch the surface and try to see what it does really mean, what's really behind that warning sign. I will always say that being a parent, being it a father or a mother, it's work. You have to do the work. Karina Azevedo here, and she's saying, I'm watching with my daughters, and
good.
Kudos to you, Karina. Great move to be watching with your daughters, I think. How can I make sure they don't think they are being spied, but their parents care about them?
Okay.
Great.
It's a tough game, isn't it? The balance between protection and supervision and protecting their privacy, but protecting her from others.
What were you going to say, Sonia?
Yes, it's something that it also addresses my concerns, because I think very much where is the limit between being a spy, what have you done, what have you right, show me, or just being cared about and supervising, and it's very difficult. I think it's a very good question, Karina. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to say, I completely agree. It's a difficult question, but I think, Karina, you're already doing it. You're watching with your daughters. You're having this conversation. I speak to parents literally around the world, and they ask me things like, what is the app that I can use, or what kind of parental control? And there isn't anything. You already have the secret right there, is that you're watching with your daughters. You're creating a dialogue, an open dialogue. You're having a conversation about these issues. And I think that it's definitely possible to have an agreement to set some sort of boundaries and say, hey, listen, how about once a week we talk about, some of the messages you get. I'm not going to look in your phone, but I would love it if we just sat back and we talked about them, and just for you to feel free to come and talk to me about any of these issues, and to let your daughters know that you may not have all the answers, but my goodness, you're going to find out, and you're going to try to help them. And it's that sort of support and open conversation and dialogue that goes a long way in parenting in the digital age, for sure.
Absolutely. That's also a great answer, Elizabeth. I also think that I've had some cases in which a relation of trust between parents and their children, in which our children need to be sure that, we all make bad decisions once in a while, and our children aren't exempt from that. So they might also make bad decisions regardless of the advice we give them. But if they run into trouble, they can be assured, they must be assured that we are there to help them get out of trouble, and not to censor or punish them for the mistakes that they have committed. I had a case in which a 13-year-old girl, and I'm just telling you specifically, Karina, for you. I don't know how old your daughters are, but I had a case of a 13-year-old girl that started sexting to what she thought was a 16-year-old boy, and she ended up being a victim of sextortion. And she ended up having the courage to tell her mother, and the fact that she told her mother that she was in that situation made it possible for her to contact me, to contact police, and the guy was caught. Had she suffered in silence, because she would be afraid of not telling her mother that she had done something wrong, that shouldn't be doing it, and she would probably ended up being a victim of sexual abuse, as other girls were from that same guy. So building a trust relation between us and our children is crucial, you know.
Yeah, and I just add one thing, Tito, is
absolutely.
that while we're saying, you know, for ourselves as parents, to have, you know, a trusted relationship with our children, I 100% agree with you. But I also want to say to Karina that sometimes you may not be that person. You may not be the parent that they want to talk with, and that's okay, as long as they have a trusted adult. Perhaps you have a sister, they've got a great auntie or uncle, or someone in school or someone else in your community, because I think that there is a lot of burden on parents to do everything and be everything, and that it is okay if you have a bit of help. And I see the ages of the children, 16, 10, and 3. Yeah, good job.
Elisa is also asking a question to you, Elizabeth, and she's saying, Elizabeth, what would be your top 3 preventive suggestions to avoid being a cyberbullying target?
You know, that is a tough one, only because people are people. Kids are kids. You can be the nicest person in the world and not do anything online and still become a target for no other reason. Sometimes, for example, I've seen in my children's school, my boys are 9 and 12, and sometimes because they don't have social media accounts, I'm not saying they're getting bullied, but sometimes they're teased about this because they're not in with everyone else. And so there are all of these dynamics that are happening with our children and young people where they're trying to one-up each other. But if we were just to talk about exclusively cyberbullying and a way for young people and even adults to not be a target, so to speak, is I would always say, you know, checking your settings to make sure that you have all of your communities and your accounts on private, being vigilant in your own comments, you know, some of the things that you're saying, to kind of, you know, have this sort of social and emotional empathy characteristics as you are responding to people. And the third one, my goodness, I think having a great, again, support group where, you know, if you have other people who notice something or see something, and then sometimes it's easier for them to say, oh, that wasn't cool, rather than you have to say it and get engaged into a conversation. So sort of just having available peer supporters for you already. Tito, I see you looking. You're going to interject. Come on in, say something.
No, it's true. I say sometimes people think that the way of not being cyberbullied is not having an internet presence. And we see instances in which people don't have an internet presence, and they are talked about on the internet. They are defamed. They are cyberbullied, basically. So that's definitely not going to be a preventive strategy, because as you were saying, anybody can be a target. You don't need to do anything to become a target. The only thing is somebody wants to hurt you for some odd reason that we sometimes can't figure out why. Sometimes it's even somebody that we don't know from Eden, like a troll coming into a live stream and just saying dirty words, and probably has doesn't have time, probably has a lot of time on his hands. So Elisa was saying, Elisa Stern was saying regarding your comment that that really makes sense.
Yeah.
And basically, Elisa's question also was one of the questions that I had. The other one was, what tip can you give parents to identify cyberbullying, but telling the difference from an online aggression? Because one thing is something that happens once, and the other is that happens repeatedly, or something that somebody did once, but then it gets reposted, shared, or something like that. This is cyberbullying, or this is just somebody being mean once?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that one in just 1 second. I'm going to rewind a little bit because I took Elisa's question to mean, as me as a young person, what could I do to prevent myself becoming a target? But if I answered it differently, which I think is how you're asking me, Tito, which is what can parents do to prevent cyberbullying, I have different answers, meaning I think that always along the same things as what I was saying with Karina, as far as keeping this open dialogue and talking about what is cyberbullying, what does it look like? What are some of the situations where this can happen? I was playing once Minecraft with my son, and we were watching a YouTube video later because we wanted to figure out how to do something. And in between the YouTube comments, we saw that all of the street names had derogatory racial words. And so I used that as a teaching moment to my son to explain that, no, we're not being cyberbullied. That this is, something that's happening. This isn't targeting us. This is just somebody being very nasty online. But it also gave me an opportunity to, say, well, what would you do if it was targeted to us, and how should we respond? What are some of the sort of techniques? And when you think back to it, and really I'm thinking about Karina with her 3-year-old, these are the things that we already do in different situations. So for example, when we are walking with our children in a park and we kind of give them a scenario and say, gosh, what would you do if somebody offered you some candy? And we teach our children, to say no, or to say stranger, or what have you. We do these things already by instinct, and we just have to do the same thing with some of the cyberbullying activities that happen. But again, the most important thing that I feel that parents can do is to be supportive, to listen, to not condemn. Tito, earlier you had mentioned about restrictions and punishments when things go wrong, because inevitably they will. I think that I would always caution parents, especially of teenagers and children that are a bit older with mobile phones, is that as soon as you take away those devices, you are taking away their whole social network and their community. So to really, make sure that you have the correct punishment for the crime, so to speak, because you can sometimes go too far. Now, if we go back and you're talking about the online aggressions, yeah, I completely agree with you that it's this one-time thing versus something that's repeated. And the other problem that we're seeing with online aggression is that it's now taking off. We see it with things like, doxing, where somebody is looking to find documents on somebody and they put that out into the giving away their personal information, or even revenge porn, doing these types of images. I mean, these are all online aggressions. So for me, they really are distinct as far as, that kind of one-off that can cause such damage, and cyberbullying, which is repeated. And actually, I'm going to put a question to Sónia, because this is something that, Tito, you made me think of when we were talking about your troll and, being anonymous and why would you do that? And I personally love this idea, this term of online disinhibition. The fact that that people will do something because they're anonymous and they can cause harm. So I just wanted to have Sónia, if you had any thoughts on that, and about how it makes people more aggressive in cyberbullying or online aggressions. I mean, just because you're the psychologist, and it's really cool.
No, online disinhibition. It's one of the characteristics of the communication through the screens, and it's one of the reasons why cyberbullying sometimes occurs, like other behaviors online that are not cyberbullying. But it makes some people in a particular place of when we share too much, because we are in a screen. I see your eyes, I can see you, but most communication are not like today online, when we can see each other with the camera, and that type of communication, it turns people more disinhibition, with more disinhibition. So we can share more things and images and thoughts and representations about us and about what we think about others, that can be appropriated by others, and it can be very harmful. So it's one of the tips for prevent. It's to be aware of our disinhibition. When we are online, we must be aware that we tend to show more than when we are face-to-face interactions. That's it.
Ooh, that's
I usually on events, I usually say that for some people, when they drink more than they should, they start saying and doing things
Exactly.
that you would usually not do and say. For some people, the internet has more or less the same effect. They start while they're using it because of anonymity, and because they can have a persona that nobody knows because it's a fake ID. They start saying and doing things that they wouldn't do otherwise. Yeah. Elisa Stern is also saying something regarding your comment before. Which is what your privacy setups that you were also mentioning. But she says also something interesting. As a preventive measure, be also polite with others, avoiding being counterattacked and group ethic attitude. And yes, that's something that really sometimes happens, And Karina is also asking another question, which is, what is the best way to report cyberbullying without exposing the victim further? We had, I'm not sure if Karina is mentioning this because of what I'm going to say, but today we had a case here in Portugal in which a kid is a victim of an aggression in school, and that aggression is recorded on video, and the video was posted online. The mother of the child found that video on her child's mobile device, and she herself posted the video because she was claiming that the school didn't act. So I think this is what Karina might be mentioning. But Karina, if I'm wrong, just tell me. It had nothing to do with this case, but it was an interesting case that came to the media and has been in the media today, on TV, on printed press, and so forth. So in order to defend her child, the best way that this mother found was to further expose the child.
Yes. And then here's where I would put on my lawyer hat and say, no. I think that parents need to be really careful. If already some of the first things that we talk about with reporting cyberbullying or reporting any sort of illegal activity online is, to take a screenshot of the activity, to record it, to keep it, but to keep it on your computer, to not forward it to other people, to not share it with other people, to not say, look at what they did, but to keep it on hand so that way you can have it for the internet service provider, for the social media platform, for the police, if you have to go that far in the reporting, but by no means to continue the sharing. I can completely understand that the mother was frustrated, the lack of response from the school, for sure. But one thing that my mom always told me, bless her heart, when she was alive, was that there are 3 versions to every story: your version, my version, and then somewhere in between the truth. So we don't know exactly what happened. And so before defaming another child, to really be careful, and especially because we know that these types of videos and photos, images, they're going to stay online forever. Now, this child who could rightly so be a bully, this will follow that person as they're applying for university, as they're applying for jobs. It will be there.
Yes, and Karina says further, how to preserve the image of the victim. Some channels here on TV, while reporting the case, have hidden the child's face. But the fact is that in school, everybody probably knows who he is. So what can we do besides not sharing that? Because that's another thing. Sometimes people think that by sharing that on social media, they are giving their contribution to bring awareness to the case, and they are contributing to bully the victim, basically.
Yeah, and bullying the bully.
Yeah. Also, that's also something that sometimes we don't understand, is that bullies also need help. And Karina was saying that yes, I'm right. That was the case of today. Today's case.
And that's a really tricky one, Tito and Karina, because one of the things that I am based here in France, and I would hope that if we had something similar, that, if we brought it up to the school officials, one, that they would react, and that two, that this child would still remain anonymous, and that they would use this again as a teaching moment to talk about cyberbullying in a sort of, open, the whole school is going to hear about this without any sort of personally identifiable information as to the actual story and circumstance. And it may be that perhaps that's why the school didn't react so quickly, is because they were going to do something in a week's time. I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But it has to be done in this sort of way. I would also say, Karina, to never contact the other parents, to wait, to calm down, because of course no one wants to think, oh my goodness, my child is a victim and it's your kid that did that. Nor do you want to be the person where another parent comes up to you and says your child is a bully. And I do think that today we use these words so easily, where somebody does something online and says, oh, he's a bully, she's a bully, they're bullies. And I just think we need to, step it back, make sure that your children are okay, first of all, and that they're getting the support that they need before escalating and posting pictures and videos and goodness knows what else.
That connects very well with the question that I also had lined up here is, okay, so how can a parent intervene if he or she finds out that their child is being cyber a bully? We tend to think of our children as victims.
Again, I would always...
we forget. I usually say the bad companies the bad guys are always orphans, because no parents comes up say, "Oh, that's my child." Right. Aggressors, bullies also have parents, and what if we find out
they do
that my child is being an aggressor?
Yeah, and it's difficult, and here there are different types of advice, right? So for example, I always do caution people. Oh, thank you, Karina. I always caution people to to hold off on confronting parents. But if you do look at some great resources like Cyberbullying Research Center in the United States, they have a whole, I think like 10 steps of what parents can do. And one of the things that they do recommend is that you can speak to the other parent, but you have to be really calm. You have to drink a lot of chamomile tea before you go, drink, smell some lavender and be and so you go in and you can schedule a meeting. You can kind of explain what the situation is. You're going to show the screenshots to the parent and without pointing the finger, just say this is what's happening. Those type of situation, they can work. I'm always just very hesitant about myself confronting another parent. I would much rather have an intermediary of a school, a child psychologist, a community member, religious community member, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, what have you, another trusted adult who can help manage the situation with all of the different viewpoints.
Yeah. We never know how the other party is going to react, and they might react aggressively as well. For instance, if the child mimics the behavior he or she's at home. So the best way is to find the school or somebody that can act as an intermediary. Elisa Stern is also saying regarding the conversation that we're having, I believe is Sonia and Elizabeth, how to learn to the kid how to react to stop being cyberbullying by himself with autonomy. Autonomy is key, I guess, giving them tools in backstage to allow him how to react. So how can we help our kids defend themselves, basically, is how I read it.
Yeah, and for me, immediately when I saw Elisa's question, I just think social and emotional learning, teaching our children empathy, having them as well to defend themselves. So that way they don't automatically go on the attack with something like this. And for them to realize that they can step away. Tito, again, when we were talking about the troll that you were dealing with, you didn't go ballistic and end our call for this and that. You just, pulled it away. It's something else. And I think those are some of the things that we have to teach our children. And unfortunately, because it's a word that we hear all the time, but I'm going to say it because it's so important, is resilience. Teaching our children how to bounce back, teaching them, even though they are our little prince and princesses, but the world doesn't revolve around them, and that sometimes something happens and somebody says something, and that they need to learn how to just bounce back and go with the flow.
Yep, absolutely. Those are 2 to 3 things that we'll have guests coming in because I also find them that they are crucial to prevent and to tackle cyberbullying. That is social and emotional intelligence, resilience, and we'll have guests both in Portuguese and in English approaching those subjects.
Great.
Regarding resilience, we'll have Vicky Shotbolt from Parent Zone.
Oh, wonderful.
And she'll be bringing information regarding a plan that they have, a framework that they have developed in the UK for digital resilience. And we also have Celeste Simões from Portugal that has been involved in a European project to develop a resilience, a European resilience curriculum.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fantastic. I will definitely listen in, because I know for a fact that Vicky has been doing fantastic things with the Parent Zone, as far as, getting things out to parents and giving them the skills and the strategies that they need.
Okay, so we have somebody that you also know.
Hi, Ligia.
Ligia is also with us, and she has been also helping us get the word out about these the almost daily sessions. So, Ligia, obrigado por estar conosco. Thank you for joining us. We're already 50 minutes. And I have 3 questions. How can a parent intervene if he or she finds out their child is being a bystander of cyberbullying behavior?
Yeah. And I think that is also important, because again, we always think about the victim, and we don't always think, you're welcome, Melissa, and we don't always think about the repercussions for the bystanders. They could have some of the same symptoms. They can feel helpless like a victim. They can be fearful because they don't know what's going to happen. They can feel fearful, afraid that if they stand up and say something, that they're going to be bullied in turn. So I think that all of in all of these situations, again, I don't want to put all of the burden on parents, but it is recognizing when something is a little bit off to get a conversation going, because quite frankly, I don't know how else you're going to find out until it's too far down the road, and unless you speak with your children, unless you show them in a supportive way that you're there for them, you're not going to punish them, you just want to hear what they have to say to make sure that they're okay, and then to offer your help.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Most of studies have shown that bystanders play a crucial role in putting a stop to cyberbullying. So many programs are being focused around the role of bystanders. For
sure. As peer supporters, the things that they can do, they can really help, especially when it's a group dynamic. But again, when it's just that one person and looking at the power between the victim and the bullies, it is very difficult for that one person to be the upstander and to say something. But I think that those are all things that parents can teach their children too, to talk about, what do you do? How can you stand up and show your support for someone? Is it just as simple as going over and giving them a pat on the back, a hug, or sitting with them at lunch? These are all great strategies that parents can work out that work for them in their culture, in their countries.
Absolutely. Another question is regarding what do you find are the best educational solutions for students, teachers, parents, or communities that you have seen implemented to prevent, identify, intervene, and tackle cyberbullying? I'm asking you this because I know that you've been into several countries, so you have an international perspective on the issues that can benefit us all.
Yes, I've just seen some fantastic programs in the United States. Again, I think I mentioned the Cyberbullying Research Center with Justin and Samir. I loved everything that they put out. And in fact, I would even tell people to go to that website where you can download exactly PDFs that say what to do if my child is being bullied, what to do if my child is the bully. Just fantastic tips. I think that the Enable projects, and I believe you're gonna share some of those resources. We have parent guides, parent care guides that also can walk you through But if you're talking about some of the programs, I really think that the Kiva program was also looking at empathy. They were doing fabulous things in Denmark.
That's the one from Finland, right?
Yes,
The Kiva.
yes. Kiva is from Finland, yes, which has been the basis for a lot of other programs. I also, when we worked on the Enable project, we were looking at cyberbullying for children 11 to 14 in 5 different European countries. Don't ask me which ones because I can't remember everything. I remember Greece.
Croatia was one of them.
Yeah,
The
Greece,
UK
Croatia,
was
UK, that's 3.
Yeah.
See, Tito, now we're in trouble. I haven't forgotten the other 2 countries. I'm so sorry. And what we found by doing this and looking at social and emotional learning is that, and intelligence, is that we were too late. 11 and 14 was too late. And so we were looking at the models that we had seen in Denmark, where they are starting teaching this training, this empathy to children as young as 3 years old. So those types of things are incredible. I also have to say, with a disclaimer, that I'm now on the board of trustees of the Diana Award. And of course, I think that they are doing fantastic things with their anti-bullying ambassador programs in schools, only in the UK, but still. And also the peer supporters programs where we have, teens teaching teens and kids talking to kids, because we all know they listen to each other sometimes a little bit easier than an adult. So those are just a few of the programs that I've seen, but I would say anything where people are now talking about bullying, anti-bullying, and bringing it into the school curriculum, even if it's, just a small little touch here and there. And those are things that are definitely helpful for the future. And when we even mentioned the curriculum, that was also some work that I did for the Council of Europe, was working on the digital citizenship curriculum framework to try to, again, bring in all of these issues that will cover responsible technical use, being able to communicate, using all these great things and fun things, as the future citizens of the world. Oh yeah, there's Enable. I'm seeing all these good things. Yeah.
Yes, I was showing the. I'm sorry to cover you to show the cover.
That's absolutely fine. They've seen enough of my face. It's fine.
This is the translation into Portuguese from the Enable resources that are available on the SeguraNet website. The resources for students, teachers, parents, and other participants, in which took quite some hours to Sonia, together with more people from the Ministry of Education, wasn't it, Sonia? This was the one that you translated, wasn't it?
Yes.
We also brought some additional resources that you had mentioned, Elizabeth. Do you want to say something about the Internet Literacy Handbook?
Sure. But before I do, while you had my face blocked out, I was able to go and take a quick peek at my notes and the other 2 remaining countries.
Okay.
Please, Belgium and Denmark. Yay!
Okay.
Yay! I didn't forget them. So let's see, what you have on the screen is the Internet Literacy Handbook. And this is a handbook that I co-wrote with Janice Richardson, who is the creator of Safer Internet Day, and also with Martin Schmezzelried. I'm trying to think of this one. Yes, with Martin as well. And what's really cool is that it's for parents and for teachers, and we try to go through all of the different terminologies and activities. Ironically enough, it came out, I believe, 2 years ago, and as technology goes so quickly, things are happening and changing. I think you probably saw the news in Spain about the young man who was arrested for upskirting more than 500 women. So then we have this new terminology, upskirting. What's that? Where they're taking the video between underneath the skirts of women when they're on metros and public transportation. So the Internet Literacy Handbook does not cover a lot of these things, these new things that are happening, cyber flashing, juice jacking, but there will probably be another one written shortly.
Okay. You were saying the upskirting, and that's also something, for instance, in Korea, it's a phenomenon.
Yes.
Not only the upskirting, but also microcams on toilets and stuff like that.
Yes.
And it's also something that has been reported lately. Hotels, Airbnbs, and one has to be very cautious of one's surroundings. And there are even some technical devices that we can use in order to detect if there are any devices, cameras installed. So when you go to a hotel, or you're staying at a place that you're not familiar with, you can check that.
Well, you may have all those books, but you know your tech. I want one of those.
I'll leave a link for one of those in the comments. And this brings us to technical solutions. I was leaving that question out. Are you aware of any technical solutions to prevent, fight, and tackle, intervene in cyberbullying cases before we go to the rest of your resources?
Yeah, sure. No, I haven't actually heard someone say I have used this and it's great. But of course, there are technological tools that exist. I'm sure everyone's heard about Rethink, which was started by the young woman. There's apps and things that do all sorts of great things. There are also, I think even Google came up with something, some sort of algorithm to help. So there are technical solutions that are coming, but I don't want to sound cynical, but we know human nature is what it is. And people will find ways to either get around the technology or say their little remarks some other way. So I always really just say, we need to work on that resilience. And actually, I would even say what would be best was to work on the behavior so people don't bully, they don't aggress. That would be the ideal world. But if we can't control them, then we can help our children to react or not react to those situations. But yeah, there's tons of great tech things out there, and tons. But there's also lots of people.
We're at the hour, and we have 2 comments, and we still have your resources to go through. So I'll speed up. But Ligia is saying that the enable resources are translated into Portuguese, and I'll leave the links in the comments after the show. Karina says, "Congratulations! Let's keep our children safe." I agree. And now, looking at the resources you have provided, we also have and now I'm going to hide your face again. My apologies. We have Parenting in the Digital Age. Do you want to say something about this resource?
Sure. This was a small brochure that I wrote for the Council of Europe 2 years ago for November 17th, I think, the Day for Prevention of Online Sexual Exploitation of Children. It is a free download. Everything that we're talking about, all of these things are free, available on the Council of Europe website. And in fact, if you've missed something, you're not quite sure, if you just go Council of Europe and put children's rights, you will see on the page publications, and you can find all of these things and download them. What's interesting about this guide, this brochure, is that I also did 6 videos that went with it to explain grooming, sexting, etc., which also provides tips to parents. So it was a lot of, for a horrible topic, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You're saying the link that you provided regarding Enable, and you mentioned that on this link people can go to specific places to get some information. Can you?
Sure. If you use that link, that will take you to the Enable page, and you'll be on the resources page. If you click resources, you'll see there's a lot of things and graphs. If you're a teacher, there's some materials for you. But if you scroll down, you'll see for parents, and you'll see that we have a parent pack and also an anti-bullying pack. And they're very short, less than 10 pages. But again, they walk you through some of the basics, some scenarios. And what's also interesting interesting is they give you some conversation starters, some ideas of how to talk to your children and young people about cyberbullying. So take a peek.
Okay. Yep. As I was saying, I'll leave these addresses, URLs in the comments so that people can click on them. And this is also another resource that you've developed for COFACE, Families Europe.
Right.
You want to say something about it?
Sure. This was a peer review report where I looked over some of their the materials that they had created. And this was in Greece with, of course, COFACE again, with Martin and with Liz. And I know that that's also in English and Greek, not in Portuguese, but still.
Okay. And the other one is one in which Sonia, I, and Luis also collaborated, which is the book by the Council of Europe on Bullying Perspectives. So besides the chapter that I wrote with Sonia and Luis, you were the author together with Janice and Roger. Do you want to say more?
Yes. Sure. Actually, this was a European SchoolNet work that we did on the Enable project, but thankfully the Council of Europe published it for us so we could get it out quicker and faster to everyone because people were very interested. And it's a collaboration with lots of chapters from different experts around the world. And it's a nice little collection of different essays. I would also point out that there's a chapter from some of the parents and the moms, and one of them is from my sister-in-law because my niece has Down syndrome, and so it's talking about the type of bullying that vulnerable children can also have. So it really tries to cover a lot of different bases. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yes.
Oh, now I hear you. Nope, I hear Sónia.
Não te estamos a ouvir, Tito. Tito?
Okay.
I think I'm back.
Yes, you're back.
You're back.
Thanks to technology for this. I was saying that one of the things, the areas in which I find some resources lacking regarding cyberbullying is children with special needs. Children with special needs are usually targets of cyberbullying because they're easy to pick on. And that's an area where I think we need more resources, even in English. I think there isn't much around.
But I would completely agree with you, Tito. But also talk about some of the positive stuff that we have online as well. Is that you can go on Instagram and there are Down syndrome communities and Instagram influencers who have Down syndrome. So it's a matter of going and finding the empowering resources that are there that represent all of the different types of vulnerable children, from migrant children, refugee children, displaced persons. The internet has all of that stuff there. It has some great things to do.
That's true. Another resource that you provided us is the digital citizenship education, and this is volume 2, but there is also volume 1, which I believe is you say what it is.
Oh, it was a literature review where they really went through and did everything. That was with Davinia and Davinia Miggs-Frau and Brian O'Neill from the Dublin Institute of Technology.
Okay, and we're almost finished. And the last one is the digital citizenship education handbook, which I believe is this one.
That's it. So that was a takeoff of the Internet Literacy Handbook, but based on the digital citizenship education project. And so that handbook is also available free online, and it does the same thing where it goes through basically the 10 digital domains, the things that we came up with after looking worldwide at all of the digital citizenship education programs and finding really the 10 things that the Council of Europe can share with the member countries.
Okay. We have a few comments here. Let me check. I'm sorry because I'm taking longer than I was supposed to. We're already 10 hours after the time. Okay, it was António João telling me that nobody was listening to me, that my mic was off. I didn't do anything. So, okay. I was wondering, and I was going to, we're reaching the end, asking you, I'll ask you a question, and then I'll give you a few minutes or seconds to think about it, and I'll introduce what we'll have tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and then I'll come back to you so that you answer my question. Is that okay?
It works for me.
Okay. And my question would be, if you had just one single advice to give parents regarding preventing cyberbullying, what would it be? And now think about it, and I'm going to talk about what we'll be having tomorrow. And tomorrow our guest will be from Brazil, Fabiana Gutierrez. And since we'll be talking in Portuguese, you will forgive me if I do this in Portuguese. A Fabiana vem do Brasil e vai estar comigo e com o Luís Fernandes a falar a empatia de relações digitais. Isto é já amanhã, às 21h30, hora de Portugal continental, e às 17h30 para quem nos acompanha a partir do Brasil. Depois, no dia 3, voltamos ao inglês. And then on the 3rd of October, we'll be speaking in English again. We'll have Anne Collier from the US, also with me and Sónia. And the topic will be the cyberbullying discussion, historical perspectives from both sides of the Atlantic. And we'll go over how we have seen this topic evolve over the years, and the research that has been coming out from both sides of the Atlantic. And then on the 4th, we'll have another guest from the US, Jill Brown, and she'll be talking with me about social and emotional learning in the 21st century learning environment. Jill has developed a framework very interesting on teaching social and emotional intelligence. So it will be an interesting topic. And we have some more great sessions. We're saying António João. Thank you, António João. Karina is also saying something. Be kind online, be kind in life. That's true. Thank you, João, also, António João, for being with us. And Elizabeth, my question. So if you had one thing, what would it be? What advice would it be?
Well, you gave me a few minutes, so I took a couple of notes, and I cheated, okay? Because it's not possible to just say one thing. So I did.
That's true.
One thing.
Okay, you can come up with 3 then.
Okay, no, I've got one, but it has, little letter A and B, C underneath it. Okay, so the one thing is to be present, right? For digital parents, to be present, because when they're present in their children's lives, then they are able to support them. They're able to listen to them, and they're able to craft solutions and responses. So you see, one thing: be present.
That's true, and that's some good piece of advice. In closing, I would like to, sometimes people are watching live, but other people will be watching the recording, and I'll like to give them means that they can get in touch with you and your work. So you can visit Elizabeth author page at this address. I also leave these addresses on the Facebook comments. You can also reach Elizabeth's website, digitalparentingcoach.com, where she has also a resources page. If you want to get in touch with Elizabeth for professional reasons, you can reach out through LinkedIn. She's also there. And she also has a Facebook profile where you can also head her to. I'm not sure. This is a page, is not a personal profile, right?
Right. Yeah. Because in fact, I don't have anything personal really. But in fact, Tito, I can for you. If you just say they can contact me, Digi Parent Coach, on any social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest, just Digi Parent Coach, and they can find me. But I would say the best place to come and to have conversations with me and even Tito, because he's in my group, is to come to the Facebook group, which is the Digital Parenting Community, where we are a closed group of about 1,700 members, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, child protection experts, cybersecurity people, child psychologists, and we are all doing what you're trying to do, which is figuring out how to parent in the digital age. And I think the most important thing is that we're sharing best practices and resources. When we hear something, we share it. So we're kind of this community of just dragging everybody with us into the digital age. And it's just a lot of fun. And we like jokes too. So come on in.
Okay, well, it's closing time. I would like to thank you once again.
One thing, please.
Oh, for sure.
To finish, well, I would like to thank very much for your time, Elizabeth, and your advices. And I just want, you talk about so many things that were very important, but I would like to highlight the importance of kindergarten has a space for prevention and promotion of social and emotional skills like empathy, resilience, among others. And I have a deep admiration for early childhood educators, and they operated on the basis of the rest of the child's growth and development. So it was a very important aspect when you told that we are going too late when we are working with children at 11, and we must work earlier. So thank you so much for that advice.
You're quite welcome. My pleasure. So Tito, is this almost it? Because I have to go do a little bit of nighttime reading. No, I don't read in Portuguese, but it looks so good.
You're taking lessons, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I can now say good night.
Okay. Well, Elizabeth, thanks a million for being part of this. It's an effort. We have to start somewhere, and that's an idea that I came up with. Some people called me nuts, trying to have a Facebook Live almost every day. But well, it's worth trying, and it's always a pleasure to have interesting guests such as you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It was a pleasure to have you and to learn with you. And hopefully we'll see each other again, being it online or offline.
Agreed.
And thanks to everybody that was around with us. And don't forget, tomorrow we'll have Anne Collier we'll have Fabiana from Brazil, and she'll be talking about empathy and digital relationships. And I leave you and see you tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. Portugal time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.